Temps are officially down, snow has started to fall across the United States, but that doesn't slow down members of the Washington, D.C. region SCCA. Thanks to the iRacing.com sim and tonight, Watkins Glen International, these drivers are able to race on, providing some of the most compelling racing that virtual motorsport has to offer. Welcome to Sim TV. I'm Andrew Cardinale IV with Connor Horn. Connor, welcome to the all-new, rebuilt, remastered Watkins Glen International.
Pleasure to be alongside you for this. This is going to be a blast. I love this track already. I love driving it. I love broadcasting from it. Finally updated, the most anticipated update on the iRacing service in who knows how long. This is going to be wild and it's going to be exciting.
It is absolutely going to be exactly that, wild and exciting. I think everybody's been looking forward to this track hitting the sim in this form with the brand new pavement, curving especially. I know Kyle Heyer obviously is probably the biggest fan of this track finally hitting the service in this form, but everybody can take a nod and I guess appreciate that we actually have this version of Watkins Glen finally in the sim. Heading down trackside, qualifying is underway. Boy, this is going to be a fun one. Round number 7, and back in the GT4 cars, I know there's been a couple of rounds where things kind of mix around. Some at point open things up with a multi-class kind of setup. Connor, go ahead and talk. Anybody who, maybe like me, hasn't been here for all the previous rounds.
Well, it's been pretty wild from the start. We started with a multi-class race with some Radicals and the Mustangs and a few other cars in there. There was a lot of chaos at Summit Point. The majority of the races have been with the GT3 class, and we've had some wild races. Most of these races have been dominated. Usually the top 3, you could usually expect a DJ Alessandrini, Andrew Palada, and Paul Darling top 3, sort of like Hamilton, Verstappen, and Bottas. But we'll see what happens differently this week. Alessandrini had an off last week. Unfortunately, we couldn't stream last week, but Alessandrini had a bit of a mistake last week. I believe Paul Darling might have won that race, as majority of the races, like I said, have been GT3. Last week we were in Virginia, the home track for the WDCR. And the week before that, had a Formula V event right before Thanksgiving. But everyone's trying to get back into the swing of things a little bit. And we're here at Watkins Glen, a beautiful track to get back into it. And an endurance event for the new Watkins Glen, a special event because of the track finally being updated and into GT4 cars.
Yeah, 45 minutes for tonight's race. It's going to be a lot of fun. These McLarens, BMWs, and Porsches, they take to this track in some interesting ways. If we take a look over to some of the lap times that are getting turned here in qualifying, Christopher Lapras currently top of the board, just ahead of Matthew Sisson, literally just ahead. 5/100ths of a second separating these two. Christopher Lapras in a McLaren, Matthew Sisson in a Porsche.
It's going to be interesting so far. Trying to look at the times here. We know in this league the Porsches have been so dominant for the most part. That's because really everyone runs them. You really don't see that many McLarens and BMWs. And by the way, my mistake, we do not run GT3s. Normally we do usually run GT4s. I believe the final event of this fall season is in GT3s, but this is GT4 primarily, so I apologize for messing that up. But trying to look at the times right now, the McLarens, the big issue has been rear downforce. We saw it in one of the first few races at Road Atlanta. It really came into play. And there's only about 2 or 3 BMWs. They just are a bit too bulky to get around circuits like Watkins Glen. We haven't seen many up front, so we'll have to wait and see. But the Porsches have been very dominant so far.
There's new fast time as Andrew Palada. Nice first name. Goes to the top of the board. Love this magenta livery that was... I was doing my research a little bit, watching through some previous races this season, and Kyle Heyer mentioned this livery a couple of races ago, and it does definitely stand out, looks great, and is hopping right along currently to a pole time. Christopher Lapras now drops down to second. Some other drivers throughout the top 10, would be this number 45. I'm going to try here, Tala Sadiq, I would believe is how you pronounce that, in a Porsche, up to 4th.
It's a bit caught up there, almost slowed down by Darian Taggart, who gets in the way of a few drivers, but pretty decent spot for him so far. I cannot remember off the top of my head if he's ran that many races. I believe I've seen his name once or twice. I haven't seen anything much from him, but I haven't really paid attention to him, so that's pretty much my fault. A really solid time so far. The fastest times we saw in practice were low 52.1s, and right now we're in the mid 52s with Palada's time, so we'll see if that pace starts to pick up. My goodness.
That was a livery that I recall being shouted out to be inspired by one of Tomo's rides, and I don't know exactly who that was. I want to say that was number 94 that went crashing into the bus stop, and that would be...
Darian Taggart.
There you go. And you know what? I recall seeing that car right at the bottom of the hill when we followed Sadiq around. So that was one spectacular way to crash.
Yeah, that was something. Contact coming to a bus stop. Drivers getting aggressive in qualifying. I don't know if that was in frustration or what, but that might happen. We'll see if that happens in the race because those two wide races into a bus stop can go sour pretty fast. We just saw an example of it.
Now on board here with Jack Chrissy. I recall Chrissy running the McLaren previously, so I think this is definitely an opportunity to chase the car, I guess, to chase the handling of the car. Going down to a Porsche, I say down to a Porsche, going over to a Porsche, following a couple of drivers around the track right now. In fact, following Isaac Beekman into the bus stop, gives Beekman a bit of a delta ahead. We're going to pull right back up and see if Chrissy can squeeze some time out of here.
They're both following James Upland right now. I don't know if they're teammates, but their liveries are very similar, very identical, pretty close to each other. So all three of these drivers sort of trying to work together a little bit, but also kind of in each other's way at the same time as Huffman leads these other two drivers along with them.
Working into the boot portion. And I got to be honest, I think there's two places on this racetrack that I'm most excited to have updated. One of them is the boot. Being able to actually get onto these curbs just a little bit. If you had run on the previous version of Watkins Glen on the sim, you'll know the previous concrete curbs right along the inside of the corner, they really unsettled the car. Now these curbs, they are still there to technically unsettle the car. You don't necessarily want to use them, but you can go over and use them. And Connor, I feel like that's the most exciting part for me, at least within the boot. Also, turn 9, I feel, has gotten a lot easier.
Yeah, turn 9 is definitely much different. If you hit that curb, turn 9, in the old format, you pretty much bounced into the right side wall. It was very difficult to get around there. But, you know, these curbs are so great, so sturdy in a way. And you were talking about the curbing in the boot, but I'm especially excited for it in the bus stop. You really had to manhandle cars going into a bus stop with those tiny concrete curbs. But now look at the room, a full car width you can put on these curbs. It's going to be exciting trying to see all these drivers try to use as much as possible, trying to maximize their entries and exits.
Yeah, this was my other one spot that I love about this new rescan is you can actually use the curbing throughout the bus stop, and you can get entirely on that red and yellow curbing as one driver is going to go spinning through the frame. You can get entirely on that curbing and, you know, obviously shave a little bit of time off and not get an off track. So that, I feel, is one of the coolest things about having this track updated finally, especially for NASCAR stock cars. You can get up there and really pound the curbs. But even these GT4 cars, I'm surprised, they are popping up on two wheels quite a bit.
I think one thing about the curbs, the only really disadvantage I've seen in practice on those bus stop curbs, they are a little bit bouncy. You hit them an awkward way, your car can bounce offline, and you got to be careful not going into barriers or somewhere else.
Ooh.
I think that was Brandon Hook who went spinning into a bus stop when we saw him there, but you got to be careful, got to hit him right. If you hit that angle, that first curb just perfect, you can kind of straight line these two before getting it back to the left to hook it just perfectly like that driver just did.
Yeah, you can see how close they're getting to the wall there as well. We have a camera especially for that. Thanks to Finian for setting this one up. Look how close they get, and I think we'll see some more drivers get a little bit closer. Just watch this as they come rumbling into the bus stop.
Yeah, trying to look at all these drivers. Here comes Sam Scott. He's the next one, getting as close as you can. I wouldn't be surprised if people get so close to it, you might see people hit it. Cristobal Rodriguez kind of want to get a little closer than that. You've got to maximize everything here. You got to be on edge into that corner to try to get as much out of the car as you can.
Well, we were taking a look at that. I was going to mention a few moments ago, DJ Alessandrini, somebody we know is always one of the favorites in this series, was not even in the top 10, not even in the top 20. That has since changed. Top of the board for the number 61.
I think he spent a few laps trying to warm up the tires, get them an optimal temperature, and it's paid off so far. 52.354, still about 0.2 off of what he ran in practice, so I would expect him to even try to go a little bit faster here as he hops those curbs as harshly as possible.
Little ride on board here with DJ. And I think these onboard shots can do a whole lot, not just for us and fans maybe watching the series, but for drivers to go back and watch and kind of hear a little bit of what DJ is doing a little bit differently. Now, I say that, and I talk over a lot of his downshifting into the boot, but it is really valuable, I think, as a driver, having been in that. Oh, I hear your reaction there. Andrew Palada, top of the board.
That beautiful livery goes top of the board at 2:07. It looked like Alessandrini kind of slowed down once he went into the boot. Maybe he thought that lap wasn't good enough, and he's going to try to get the tires back in better condition to gear up for another lap here.
And something I found so interesting a couple of rounds ago, I believe at some point with these GT4 cars, is this is an open qualifying session. Usually what that means is drivers have the entirety of the session to run as many laps as they want, but you made a great point a couple of races ago. They get 5 laps to set their times, and that's it.
That's usually the case, as it takes a lot of difficulty, and it takes a lot to kind of time your runs perfectly. If you mess up one lap, usually, it's pretty much it. And you gotta really have to hope you can gear up for another run and maybe get some slipstream help, because slipstream help has helped drivers tremendously to get top spots in qualifying. DJ Alessandrini and Paul Darling are usually working together to get slipstream off of each other and work together to get the top row. Wish they have gotten the top row for the majority of the races, if not all of the races in these GT4 classes. So it's very difficult to time your runs and get, all the room on track you need to get a perfect time like that.
I haven't seen a whole lot of drafting in this qualifying session, but somebody that's just gone even higher on the board. A new third place, it's Ken Hausiel in the number 23. Beautiful blue Porsche Cayman 718 goes to third quick, just ahead of Jack Chrissy and Matt Waldbaum. So things shaking up in this top 10. Another driver I've got my eyes on, the number 31 of Morgan Burkhardt. We saw, I think, a little bit of this car a little while ago, earlier on in the session. Isaac Beekman also in this top 10. If you look a little further down, you mentioned Paul Darling is, oh, that was a spin there for Burkhardt, but Paul Darling is currently sitting 14th in the session, and I see DJ ahead. Is DJ going to try and pull him now?
We'll have to see here. I think DJ, that previous lap, backed up to Darling. I think that was the plan, like I've been talking about. They work together all the time in qualifying. This is going to be no different here as he's pulling Darling along. Alessandrini probably trying to nail a lap of his own. This could be good for Darling.
DJ a little bit wide, but I think kept it just on the pavement there, out of the toe. And really, I mean, this slipstream will help. I think the biggest thing that's going to help Paul right now is he's a car to chase. So if potentially he got a little bit separated earlier or was pulling DJ for DJ's lap, just having a car to chase this lap is going to help a lot, especially through these slower corners through 8 and 9. And 10 here, we'll see if it actually helps him or not. That little bit of wake might hurt him.
We'll have to see what happens in the next lap. I think they will get one more lap at it, as will a few drivers behind them. Just under half a minute left in this session. Alessandrini and Darling, the two to beat usually out of the final corner. See what times they put up here. Alessandrini across the line, trying to beat a 52.2. Does not do it. But Darling to the top of the leaderboard. The first 51 we've seen all session, a 9.94 onto the top spot.
That is 2/10 ahead of Palada. Another 10th and a half in front of Alessandrini, and another quite a ways ahead of Hausiel. What a lap from Paul Darling. That was some good stuff. Certainly, I think what we should expect from Darling at this point in time.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That is a mega lap here, and I think for the first time in a while, from what I've seen, Alessandrini will not be the top two spots. Andrew Palada kind of splits them here. Not kind of, he does split them here. So that will be interesting to note on the start here, as a few drivers finishing up their final laps. Justin Hoffman among one of them. He moves up to 26. Todd Rushing stays 21st. He did not get a lap down. Brian McRae, another one of the few, just finishing up.
But if you're DJ, does that maybe help you a little bit going to the start of this race? You actually have Paul Darling to work with. I know we're going into a race as opposed to qualifying, but maybe he can work with Darling to get ahead of Palada and Gap Hausiel. I mean, could be an idea.
It's going to be difficult because with the start we're going to have here, I believe it's going to be a rolling start unless it's been clarified otherwise. So you can, on rolling starts, sort of like an oval start, but just a normal rolling start at a road course, you can, if you have a teammate behind you, tell them when you're going, They can get a bit of extra momentum on a guy who doesn't know when the leader's going. So it could end up being pretty interesting. Obviously, you won't see 3 wide unless something crazy happens, like a missed shift, but those two can work together to get by Palada.
Sam Scott, the final car, moving on the racetrack. He is in the booth right now, going to try and finish up his lap time. A valiant effort, certainly, and I see some Clemson logos on there. You can tell these guys are regional to this area of the country. I've had the pleasure of going up to VIR a couple of times, and yeah, these guys are certainly in this area around Virginia, Washington, D.C., and the Carolinas, and that's a heavy hit.
That's not ideal. He actually had a decent run a few weeks ago, but down in 20th for this one.
Yeah, that's usually not how you want to end your qualifying run, but it looks like...
Typically.
Yeah, it looks like everybody's done. I can't see a single car that is running. The last car that is even in the session for us to look at would be this number 36 of Charlie Abel. Interestingly enough, 39th of 39 on the qualifying order. So as qualifying wraps up, once more want to thank you for tuning in this evening to SimTV Connor Horn alongside. My name is Andrew Cardinelli, not Kyle Heyer. He is in PRI. Well, he is at PRI in Indianapolis. Unfortunate that this is the first race, the first broadcast. We were talking about it pre-race here. The first broadcast for Sim TV on the new Watkins Glen, and Kyle Heyer isn't here. Can you believe it?
I really can't. That's not what I expected. He loves this track to death, and he has probably been the highest advocate for getting this track updated. One of them, no doubt. He's absolutely been begging for it, and I don't mean to be rude, but at times crying for it because he just absolutely loves this track, and I can't blame him because it's a beauty to look at. I think Road America is second, and he loves Road America, but it doesn't even come close to his love for Watkins Glen. It is a beautiful track, and it's about time we have it on the service.
Yeah, that it is. You can see we're gridding up now 39 cars in total, all GT4 equipment. We've got, of course, the BMW M4. We've got the Porsche Cayman 718, and, of course, the McLaren. I want to say 570 for some reason. I don't think that's right, but we've got a McLaren GT4. That's what's important. We've got 3 different cars for these drivers to choose from. And we are getting ready to set these guys loose. Top of the board again, Paul Darling, Andrew Palada right with him. That's your front row. Alessandrini, of note, falling down to third in this qualifying order. Ken Houseel will start fourth. Jack Chrissy, your top 5. To round out your top 10 here, Corn, it's Waldbaum, Beekman, Lapras, Huffman, and Burkhardt.
Yeah, pretty strong top 10. All those drivers usually up at the front, trying to see what Burkhardt might do from 10th. Also, Isaac Beekman always has pretty good pace. And obviously, Jack Chrissy in 5th, trying to see what he does in his new Porsche. Then you got Evan Schickel, Tala Sadiq, Adam Kobach, Matthew Sisson, and Murphy Nichols. The top 15, Murphy Nichols. We'll see if he can charge up to the front. Darian Taggart, Robert Porter, Tom Layton, Bob Casera, and Sam Scott, the top 20.
Here's a look at the tower standings, I suppose, as we get ready to hit green flag. You can see the top 15, they will stay static. Always up there for the entirety of the broadcast. That bottom 5 will rotate throughout the rest of the field. So you can also see the manufacturer logos. I do see a BMW mired back there in 32nd, Stafford in a Beamer. I think that is the only Beamer that I've seen in the entire field so far. Maybe another one or two. I'm not entirely surprised. This is a track I think that you want to attack a little bit just because of the boot. Each of these cars can go fast. The BMW, sure, you might think straight line speed, but each and every one of these cars can go fast, I think, get around this place.
Yeah, the strength on the BMW with his sort of speed, we haven't really gone to many tracks that you have enough time to get that BMW advantage to kick in. It's very bulky. You can't throw it around like a Porsche, not even really like a McLaren, and it's just a big disadvantage when we've gone to really Virginia, which has a straight, but wasn't really utilized there quite well. Summit Point was another track they just couldn't get the strength to shine. Road Atlanta, the BMWs were pretty weak there. We've seen probably 3 or 4 BMWs max in a race, and we're down to 1 tonight. So it's pretty clear what the preferred cars are, and it's not that Beamer.
It is a pretty car, though, gotta say. It is definitely a pretty car, I dare say, as everybody works on through the S's. I gotta wonder, I've been a driver on the sim just like anybody else. I'm sure you've been in plenty of these scenarios, but what is going through their minds right now? 39 of them, so let's say 40. It's a NASCAR-sized field. They're all in different GT4s. They handle a little bit differently. Obviously, a lot of Porsches in this midsection, but there's going to be a lot of differences when they get down to turn 1 for the first time. A lot to try and work through as a driver.
Yeah, it's a lot to process. Really, your first thought, if you're a smart driver, especially for the drivers mid-pack and on back, you're just figuring out where your braking point's going to be and how you're going to avoid a mayhem if it happens in turn 1 or even in the S's. Once you get into those S's, it narrows up. There's not a lot of room to avoid incidents once they happen, so you have to be very conservative on your brakes and also very conservative on the throttle, because things can happen up in front and you won't see it until you're smack dab into someone's driver's side door. So you have to be really careful and really conservative until everything spreads out. And once everything spreads out, then you make your move.
Something else is going to weigh on how these drivers attack the first couple of corners. I'm sure the first few laps and potentially the entirety of the 45-minute race. The weather conditions this afternoon in the sim, 70 degrees air temp, a very calm day, I'd say, even though it's a little bit overcast. Sitting at 77-degree track temp, you can see definitely a lot of clouds in the sky, so it's not gotten too warm out there. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, we're not going to see a lot of slipping and sliding because of the overcast conditions, so that will be pretty good if you're a driver who is not the best at keeping those rear tires on the car. You won't need to keep them on as much. You'll be able to get pretty decent runs. The track will probably heat up a little bit because of everyone trying to run around the track and generating heat, obviously. We'll see that. and it should be interesting to see who prevails, because this is a different race from what we've seen all season long. Only 12 and 24-minute races all season so far. By far the longest race we've ran.
And a big thing I noticed on there was the the humidity. Now, we don't have the wing vortices like you do on the new F1 car, but the lack of wind. It's a very calm day, so I don't think we'll see too much going on in that regard. I guess it's going to be just a nice little walk in the park for these guys, respectively speaking, I suppose. Obviously, Watkins, Glen, and each of these other 38 drivers around them, very, very tough to deal with, very, very tough to race around, but as far as weather conditions, almost optimal.
It's pretty much as good as you're going to get. This is the most grip you're going to get into the track with the overcast and cool conditions. And, you got the new track surface, maybe a little bit more gripped up. Heard there's not too much of a difference, but it does feel a little bit faster. And obviously, it feels great to run at a new Watkins Glen. You get that mindset that it's newer pavement, so you feel faster. Might not be too much faster, but, all in all, it's going to be a blast for these drivers to get around this track. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of aggressive, not a lot, but a little bit of aggressive drivers trying to show out on this new track surface.
Love watching the field of 39 work around the track. And of course, this will be the slowest they go all day long, I dare say. 45 miles an hour. Boy, they're about to be roaring down to turn number 1. It'll be a lot of fun. Thanks so much for joining us here on Sim TV for coverage of this one, round number 7 of the Washington, D.C. SCCA Virtual Racing League. Coming to the final quarter for the final time before Barney lets the green flag loose. Connor, this is about to get fun.
It is definitely for sure. Green flag is out. We're green at Watkins Glen. The new version finally as Palada sets in behind Paul Darling. Austin Draney cannot get by. He sits in third as they all come roaring into turn 1.
Great look at things here. The top 3, 4, all single file. Everybody else comes in. A big crash coming here. Oh, a couple of big hits.
Wow, that was a lot of drivers. Chris Harp is in it a little bit. A few others trying to get involved. Justin Huff and Todd rushing David Stern.
That's another one. Another crash up the S's.
No. Talas Sadiq, Matthew Sison on his side. The only 2 drivers involved in that one somehow. Somehow only 2 drivers in that one.
Everybody works down to the bus stop. Our leader's already through side by side in there. What a lap 1. Couple of drivers side by side here around the top 10. Want to see if we can get those guys. That looks like that's going to be a good battle for the rest of this lap. Looks like it's going to be right around Murphy Nichols. Yeah, Murphy Nichols, the Porsche in all of that. Adam Kobach, the driver right in front in the McLaren.
Quarter goes a little bit wide.
Whoa!
Oh, that's Kobach around out of nowhere. Backs into the tire barrier a little bit.
That was one spot that I found trouble with earlier in practice. That's myself, was the McLaren definitely gets loose into the boot. Paul Darling leading the way. Most of this first lap done. DJ Alessandrini under fire down to turn number 8. No look from House. He'll wait behind.
Yeah, I tried talking about it earlier. Me and Kyle have talked about the McLaren rear downforce. They don't go together. We saw it a lot at Road Atlanta. Rear downforce, they just do not have it, and they spin so easily in some downhill corners, and that was one of them. Those downhill corners really catch those McLarens out.
Everybody working on through the entirety of the first lap. Man, how the sights have changed. Maybe an off track there for Darling. That was a little bit liberal there with track limits. We'll see potentially if those 1Xs stack up. Lap 1 in the books. It is all the 155. Andrew Palada successfully sticking in between these two.
Darian Taggart tried to get by Murphy Nichols. Didn't quite happen there. Actually, no, excuse me. It did happen. I don't see where Murphy Nichols went. He was about to get past. He fell back a little bit on the start there, but for the most part, only two incidents there, and everyone else, really 3 actually, and everyone else gets away pretty free and single files out rather quickly.
Looks like maybe Nichols experiencing some connection issues as we work through the second lap of Watkins Glen. Again, a 45-minute race, a bit different from those heat races. You don't have a chance to come back then if you have a connection issue early. Well, that could be your race, and it very likely is for Murphy Nichols.
Yeah, I'm sure that's unfortunate because he's always a fun driver to watch, and sort of in the mid-pack hasn't competed for any wins as of yet because Alessandrini, Darling, those guys so dominant, but he's been a fun driver to watch. Wish we could have seen him race, a little bit more, as David Thompson in the back of the pack made a pass on Paul Andrews into the bus stop. That was risky but smooth.
And further up here, this is right around where Murphy was. I think he's maybe one more car ahead, but yeah, we're just not going to get a read on him, unfortunately, so we'll continue on.
Got a bit of a shakeup. Ken Alseal fell back a few positions there. Matt Waldbaum.
And DJ got up alongside of Palada.
Out of nowhere here to battle for second. Alessandrini had the run. He actually had positioning, but Palada's going to send it into the corner. They're going to stay too wide. Alessandrini wraps that curb as well as he can. Almost contact behind with Burkhardt and Chrissy, but they keep it together as Palada defends the spot.
I notice the top 4, 5, 6, they're all Porsches, certainly more stable, it seems, of the rear-engine cars. Look at that. All Porsche Caymans in the top 10.
All the way back to, let's see, 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th place. Sam Scott is up to the first McLaren in the field.
Lap number 2, going to finish up here. DJ Alessandrini took a great shot at things, trying to get that spot. I think had it for a moment, but whatever happened towards the midsection of that lap, unfortunately, DJ couldn't get that spot just yet. He's going to have to keep working on Palada, but Waldbaum moves up into the 4th spot now. As you mentioned it, Ken Hausiel working down the order in the wrong way.
Yeah, something happened into the boot, didn't quite catch it, but he lost. He went 4th to 8th, excuse me, in that lap alone, so he's going to have to recover a little bit here. No damage on the car, just a bad corner as the battle for 12th, 11th, excuse me, side by side through the S's. That's hardly going to work, but it did. Tom Layton and Darian Taggart.
Side by side still, a couple of Porsches chasing the
lap
top McLaren of the day. Oh no, it's not the top McLaren of the day, as we've got a spin up ahead, and that is going to include, it looks like, Matt Waldbaum.
And it was. He had such a good run going 6th to 4th. He had a really strong showing going so far. Matthew Sison in the back spun out, but nothing doing there. Did not see what happened there with Waldbaum.
Now Chrissy working on Burkhardt. This is for 4th, 5th. One of those two spots.
It is
Chrissy,
4th.
So that is for 4th. So Chrissy just got passed up then, is what just happened. Burkhardt worked on by Chrissy. And of course, we saw Waldbaum go spinning in the bus stop. So now he's no longer 4th. That opens the door then for the number 31 of Morgan Burkhardt takes the spot.
And we see right now what's happened in the front of the pack. Those battle for 4th is way behind the race leaders. What we're accustomed to seeing, Darling, Palada, and Alessandrini, not always in this order, but these top 3 are just above the competition, sort of how Hamilton and Verstappen are. As Alessandrini, as I say that, goes a little bit wide out of 9, loses some time to the top 2.
With lap traffic in the way, this is going to get shaky on this next lap. Lap 3 about to finish up.
Whoa.
Yeah, you can see Paul really had to check himself up there into turn 11. Now going to try on exit. Palada, no chance. Well, maybe there is a chance. Alongside on the home stretch, I think he's going to have the spot out of turn number 1. Down to the inside goes Palada for the race lead. Yes, he's got it.
But here comes the crossover. Darling played it perfectly. He's going to try to get to the right side into the S's. He's not going to do it. I think he lifted a little bit, gave Palada the benefit of the doubt. Lap traffic set that one up. Andrew Palada to the lead.
The big thing is these guys are all very smart, very respectful racers. They're not going to chance anything too crazy just yet. They'll certainly go for a pass or two. They will race, but they're not going to do anything crazy, and I think that's one of the biggest things that separates this league from a lot of others on the iRacing.com sim.
Wow, they're getting close to that wall already, those 3, and that does separate them. It's going to be such a blast to watch this. It's been crazy so far. Some more lap traffic gets in the way from the lap 1 incidents. As these top 3, class of their own right now. 4th place, Morgan Burkhardt, about 3.5 seconds back as he leads his pack. Along with Jack Chrissy, Isaac Beekman, who's squeezing Ken Hausiel for the 6th position. That almost got dicey. Huffman and Schickel in there as well.
There we go, working on by those lap cars again. Burkhardt gets by. Chrissy now going to work on by. And Beekman will come along through with Hausiel and Huffman in tow. One car is spinning. It's Charlie Abel further on back in the field, and that is not how you want your Porsche to look. That is a caved-in nose.
I think it might have been caved in already. Not sure if he hit, but he did have damage earlier, and out of the bus stop, it looked like he hit the curbing wrong and just spun it out. He gets back going.
Look at this mess up the hill to leave the boot. This is lap number 4 going to work on out. We're expecting 24 in these 45 minutes. We'll see how it all works out. Come checkered flag. Hausiel looking maybe to the inside for turn number 10. Gonna wait.
Burkhardt and Chrissy. Chrissy got a run into the final corner, but Burkhardt shuts the door out of the final corner. Chrissy goes wide, can't get the run back onto Burkhardt as they're stacked up for 8th place. 7th place, excuse me.
And that white and orange number 38 on the inside, that is the lap car of Brian McRae. He'll let these guys go on by. Now second car 1 lap down because Chris Harp has just been lapped. And Charlie Abel, I believe, has taken it into the pit lane. So that's how some of those back markers are going after the lap 1 incidents. A lot of them, I dare say, put back there by, well, reasons not of their own doing.
A lot of drivers in those lap 1 incidents just kind of had nowhere to go, and that's what can happen on a stack up on any road course really, but Watkins Glen, you see it in turn 1 every now and then. It was just unfortunate that that happened to some of those drivers. There were a lot of drivers back there that I was kind of excited to see charge of the front. One of them who hasn't been hindered, Cristobal Rodriguez, he started all the way back in 37th. He's up to the 16th position.
Let's check in a little further back in the top 15, side by side with David Thompson down to the bus stop. This should be exciting. Who gives?
No one.
Neither of them. I like it. The 51 going to take the spot. That is Thompson taking the spot back away from Cristobal Rodriguez. Again, this is for 15th. And right behind him, Sly Stafford, maybe a chance to capitalize. The one BMW that we've seen, well, very wide there out of the carousel. I think that fits the BMW right now, but maybe going to try and take a stab at this battle.
Kind of bulky the BMW is, and it can be a disadvantage, but he's making it work so far. He's been consistent. Yeah, not bad. It's been pretty consistent, 32nd to 17th. Him and Rodriguez have been moving through the field from outside the top 30. It's been pretty impressive to see so far, especially out of the BMW, which could struggle to do that sometimes. As trying to look at the battle for the lead, if there is one, Palada has a sturdy lead over Darling, and Alessandrini's still there, top 3, still above everyone else, as Burkhardt and Chrissy are trying to work together a little bit to get back to them.
Almost had a move there. Well, we did have a move from Stafford, just couldn't make it happen on the inside, maybe around the outside of 9. I'm impressed that BMW is sticking around these corners. I am very impressed. Gonna bully his way on through and take that 16th position, does Sly Stafford. So now up through half of the field. That's pretty incredible.
Ooh, there's some diciness happening in the turn 1 there. Some lap traffic getting sort of in the way. Tom Layton took advantage of it. And Darian Taggart was unfortunate to be in the middle of that battle for, I believe, the 20th position.
Taggart following a lap car, it looks like. And that is going to be one of the Porsches, Martini Porsche. I want to say that's probably Harp or Sisson. Let's go ahead and check.
That is Sisson.
That is Sisson. So we'll see how easy the number 3 makes things in these next couple of corners. I think easily the 94 should get on by at some point this lap, but Taggart's really going to have to get there, I think, and show that he wants to pass.
Whoa, I was looking at the leaders. Paul Darling pushing it. He was on the grass out of one of the corners, just trying to get up to Palada, but now he's into the clutches of Alessandrini.
You see Taggart gets that pass finally. These guys, I mean, there's just action all over this racetrack. It's really tough. 40 cars turn up to Watkins Glen, and you are bound to have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 battles like we have currently throughout the entire field. They're all worthy of watching. This back up front with 34 minutes to go.
My goodness, the battle for, not a battle, actually, just seeing Sam Scott follow someone off track. He's been a decent mover as well. Started 20th. He's up to the 13th position. One of the lone McLarens left.
And this battle, well, not this battle, this lap will wrap up lap number 6. So this will be the first quarter of this race done, thereabouts. And yeah, that checks in, actually. It's been 12 minutes now, or just about. So yeah, I think that fits as we come around and complete that lap right there. I'm interested. Do you think we'll see pit stops? I actually don't know. Do we limit fuel in this league? Are we going to force that upon these drivers? I'm sure that's a question.
It is open setup, so I suppose it is a possibility, but I'm not quite sure what the drivers will want to do here. Not sure if the fuel can go 45 minutes, to be completely honest. We'll just have to wait and see, wait it out and see what everyone else wants to do. We have not seen pit stops, at least other than a wreck in these 12 and 24-minute races. In normal racing conditions, we haven't seen it but a 45-minute race. These might be the first pit stops that these drivers really have to rely on to win a race, if that's the case.
I do know a full tank, these guys should be all kinds of good to go. You know, a full tank should go 90 minutes thereabouts in a GT4 car, but I hadn't thought about that just yet. Oh, they do have to pit. That's what we just learned from YouTube chat. So that is really going to change things up, I feel. Yeah, how do you play that then? Do you get tires?
It's going to be tough to do because the tires, how much of a difference are they really going to make? I'm not quite sure. We're going to have to just wait and see if any undercuts might happen, especially with these top 3. Overcuts and undercuts are going to be so important for these 3 if they stay under a blanket like this. So I think these 3, that's where we're going to have to look for pit stops. Who pits first is going to likely win the race, because getting the pit road first, I think, is the key. But you also have to make sure you come out and do that.
Watching some battles to round out the top 10. Here's Tom Layton in the 10th spot, the number 19 car, following Evan Schickel and Jameson Huffman. And you can see Ken Halseel in that blue Porsche up there, mired in this battle for the back. Started 4th on the race, did Ken. I feel like he could get back up there, but it's going to take a lot of hard work.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. That one lap, he went 4th to 8th. He just has not been able to gain it back. Isaac Beekman has gone to 6th position. Jameson Huffman did just get passed by Halcyon, so Halcyon back up to 7th. One more spot to get back to Beekman. Jack Kersey and Morgan Burkhardt are kind of far up the road, as they've been trying to work together to get to the top 3, but it has not worked out. They've lost around a second to those top 3.
Yeah, we've kind of opened up in the packs here, haven't we? Small gap, or small packs anyway. The top 3 have checked out, and then you've got Burkhardt and Chrissy working together somewhat. Chrissy starting to fall back, and then, of course, you look a little further down the road, you get Beekman and everybody else to round out the top 10. And there's even a gap from Layton down to Taggart, just outside the top 10. 11th place there for Taggart. Finally got by that lap car, but you can see the damage has been done.
Yeah, he's lost a lot of time, and I'm surprised he's having to sit behind the lap car there of Sayson. Oh, we got to spin Burkhardt's around from 4th position in the bus stop. Morgan Burkhardt has spun and crashed.
I don't think he really crashed.
No, he did not
That car
crash.
looks very clean.
Oh, spin behind him there. That's Bob Casera from 13th position. Another spin in the bus stop. Some virtual Oriole possibly. Interesting, 2 in a row there. So he's going to rejoin. That is not a spot you want to sit, but no one's coming, luckily.
I wonder if maybe Finian's drone dropped something on the racetrack, making things interesting for these guys. An obstacle course, something like that.
I wouldn't put it past Finian.
You know, honestly, yeah. I could totally see that happening. If he had control like that, I think he absolutely would. He'd make it interesting on us. 15 minutes down in 20 more seconds. So we are just working right on through this race. I like the pace that we've got going here. It has not felt like 15 minutes of action. Alessandrini started 3rd, is still in 3rd. The change has been for the top spot. Palada has swapped with Darling. We saw that pass a little while back. And since then, Darling has not been able to do anything with it. I dare say, though, Paul Darling likely waiting, biding his time.
I would not be surprised if he's waiting, because the real reason he lost the lead was because of losing momentum. He had a lap car out of a final corner, had to lift a little bit, not go through the final corner as well as he wanted to, lost some momentum. Palada was able to bounce, and Palada hasn't really had to deal with an issue with a lap car like that, like Paul Darling did. So we'll have to wait and see if he can get back by him, but momentum is going to be pretty key at a track like this. I think that's what we saw from that pass for the lead. And also, slipstream, we did not talk about it as much as I think we were supposed to, but slipstream is going to be important. Look at the run him and Alessandrini got. Sort of a bump draft into the bus stop. I don't know if, I guess bump drafting is legal here, but it's not going to get him by Palada, but you might as well. Why not?
I'm sure these guys have run many a Spec Miata in their day. That's absolutely something you would see in Spec Miatas here at Watkins Glen. I love it.
Oh boy, excuse me. Sorry to cut over you, but the battle for 5th has been getting intense. I wanted to mention this 5th through 9th under a blanket there. Tom Layton and Evan Schickel went side by side through there. Excuse me, Huffman and Schickel. This is a jam for 5th place.
David Thompson has crashed. We saw that briefly. This is the battle down to the boot. Here we go, right through the laces, and that's a spot for Ken Halcyon up to 6th. Or sorry, up to 5th.
Got to charge back to the front starting right here, so he's tried to make quick work. Wasn't too quick, but is as quick as he could go. Huffman had to really check up there. These drivers have been stacked up for a long time, and now look at the run Tom Layton's going to get, trying to go 9th to 5th possibly, but he does not get the run he wanted out of that corner.
Really solid battle. This works down to turn number 8, the heel. And they'll work uphill back to turn number 9 and rejoin the NASCAR course, if you will, the shorter course, the Cup course here at Watkins Glen International. And again, turn number 9 has gotten so much easier, I feel, with this repave. It's really smoothed the racetrack out, not just in terms of quality of pavement, but I feel like the bumps that used to get cars so unsettled coming up that hill and over turn 9, those are long gone, I feel like. I don't know, maybe it's just my mind playing tricks on me, but I felt like turn 9 has gotten substantially easier.
Oh, it looks so much easier. A lot of the drivers would often kind of sort of look like that left front would sort of be bouncing out of that corner to make it so hard to rotate out of that corner. You'd have to go much slower than you would want or need to. And now the pavement, a little bit different, a little bit smoother, and a little bit easier to maneuver for sure. And it's made for a lot better racing in that corner. I think you're going to see a lot more passes attempted in that corner if people get runs, because you really don't want to go too wide there, because you could get pushed out or push someone else out. But I think there's definitely enough room and enough, you know, smooth pavement to go too wide through there.
This is a battle back for the rest of the top 10 thereabouts. James and Huffman working on Isaac Beekman. Now that Beekman's been passed up by Halcyon, I think certainly the window of opportunity is wide open for Jameson right now. Looking around, and you're going to take a peek into 6. No, I don't think so. Lost a lot of time right there. And that's so tough. Coming through the carousel, you want to lean in the throttle. You want to do everything you can to get as much speed as you can for the boot. but of course, if you run just a little bit wide like that, kind of ruins everything.
Yeah, you get a little bit of dirty air on these noses. It is going to be difficult to rotate out of the corner when you have a bunch of cars in front of you that Huffman does with Beekman and sort of from Ken House-Seal. Almost had a move. Tom Layton's been working over Evan Schickel, but just can't make the move work quite yet.
Oh, Layton took a look there at turn number 8, didn't he?
Oh, he did for sure. Getting a little bit impatient here, which I can't blame him, but at the same time, you do still have 20 minutes to go. You don't have to be too aggressive right now. You have them all pretty much where you want to, and you got a pit stop, so you can undercut whenever you can.
Yeah, we've mentioned it a couple of times, but this is the longest race these guys have had all season long. They're used to those kind of 15-minute heat races that are, well, they are sprint races. You get them done almost as soon as you get them started. So those are very, very quick races, sometimes 7 laps or so. This is a 24-lap race, thereabouts, maybe 25 even with the pace they're turning.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see here. It's trying to look at maybe potential battles. Actually, I can look at the fuel. The fuel was restricted to under halfway on fuel for a majority of these, for actually all these cars. So
that definitely should force pit stops. I just saw somebody exit the pit lane.
I think that was the lap car. Marcus Montenegro had an off, and I believe turn 8, but I don't know who it was with. Trying to look, I think that was the same car we saw earlier who was a lap down, so I don't think it was a major pit stop.
We do see a pit stop here. This one, I think, is certainly along the lines of a scheduled stop. This is Sly Stafford. The one BMW in the field was up in the top 15, now on pit lane. This one looks much more scheduled.
Yeah, without a doubt, I think it must be battle for 6th. Almost went sour. Beekman and Huffman made contact there, and here comes Schickel and Layton. Layton tried 3 wide, almost swerved into a few drivers there.
Side by side through the toe. That's a 33 of Schickel on the outside. That's been pushed out there. Now into the grass a little bit. Layton going to take the inside, but the slipstream going to help Schickel down to turn number 8. Does Layton still force the issue into the 8th corner? Into the heel, yes! Hanging on that right rear.
Schickel just could not clear Layton enough to go kind of swerve left or right on the track there. Just did not have the opportunity. Trying to look at the leaders, see if anyone wants to pit here. They've sort of spread out a little bit. Darling and Alessandrini spreading out from each other. Palada's going to stay on track. They all 3 do. Waiting to see when they want to pit. What if Jack Chrissy could possibly undercut and gain some time? That might be something to consider as well, but he stays on track as well.
What's important here for Paul Darling...
Here comes Isaac Beekman. He's going to pit, and that causes chaos out of the final corner. They're 3 abreast.
3 wide down the front stretch at Watkins Glen. Now to turn number 1. Who gives? Layton still on the inside. Schickel backs out. Now the 33 going to try around the outside. That's actually Schickel. That was Huffman who backed out. My bad. Jameson, the smartest of the bunch, it looks like, now going to sit behind him and have a chance into the bus stop.
The smartest of the bunch, but he lost 2 positions because of it, as that was the first scheduled stop at the front that we kind of lost there because of the 3 wide. It was Isaac Beekman pitting from that pack, so we'll see what the undercut does here for him.
3 wide again, maybe. No, Huffman backs out again. Good idea there. Side by side, they'll still go into the bus stop. You see just how sketchy that looks to Huffman.
Oh, boy.
Schickel very sideways over the curbing. Back in. Whoa.
And look who's joined the fight. Where did Darian Taggart come from behind these 3? He's all of a sudden in this mix.
The yellow and blue number 94 joining these 3. 4 Porsches in a row. They'll go battling down to the boot one more time.
You got to be very careful. These drivers, some of these drivers might be seeing red. They've been very aggressive with each other because they've been beside each other pretty much the entire run. Taggart's going to go for a dive. Thinks better of it. Huffman kind of sent it to kind of negate the send there. But Taggart, the better run through turn 7 here. He's going to look to the inside. Not enough of a run. Back into the slipstream. See if he can make it work. Looking back up to the leaders who have converged on each other a little bit again. See if anyone out of these 3 wants to try and undercut.
We'll continue watching these guys, but something to keep in mind here is the draft and how much fuel you could save with it. You want to minimize the amount of time in pit lane. If you can save a bit of fuel here, you either A, could somehow stretch the fuel. I don't think that's going to happen. Or B, just save enough so you can take less at your stop and spend less time in the pit lane. At a place like Watkins Glen, that would be everything. To basically, not short pit, but I guess short pit in a way. A shorter pit stop and get in front of somebody.
As these drivers finally starting to get away from each other, seems they're kind of converging. But yeah, fuel strategy is going to be very, very interesting. The main thing pitting in these GT4s is you want to come out in clean air. Trying to look back at wherever Isaac Beekman came out, haven't found him quite yet.
Right here.
He did not really come out in the cleanest air. I think he did have to maneuver around Cristobal
16th.
Rodriguez and Brian Borky, but he's in around the 16th position. He has a lot more clean air to work with now up to Adam Koback, so I'm interested to see what type of laps he can put down in comparison to the top three.
Yeah, I noticed that Cristobal was headed the wrong way. That's because he was getting passed by Isaac Beekman, who was just on another level right now. Now, Cristobal will get a pit out of turn number 11, come in for his stop. But a little slow there to the line, but a nice, easy pit entry nonetheless. Kevin Zhu also on the pit lane, and he was one of the cars that we saw mangled up in one of the earlier crashes.
Sly Stafford letting some drivers by, coming in of a boot right now. He might have made contact with Taggart. That was extremely close, as that whole line of cars starts to spread out like I was talking about.
Ooh, Schickel with connection. Bit of blinking there into the tail. That's never what you want to see.
Especially late in a race when you've worked so hard to get to where you are. He's climbed 11th to 7th. Tom Layton's 18th to 6th. He's had a strong drive. And I don't remember seeing Layton really a lot this season, but he's putting on a strong showing.
Yeah, and has gotten by Schickel, Huffman, Taggart, Burkhardt. I mean, really solid day so far coming up through the order. Started in V, as you can see, 18th positions, up 12 spots. That's big.
Trying to look up at the front a little bit farther. Top three still the same. Jack Chrissy has been reeled in by Hal Seal. The charge to the front still ongoing. He's charged about 2 seconds at least on Jack Chrissy, and he's in the slipstream trying to get the spot before pit stops.
So fuel's still looming in the balance as far as what do you do? How did you start this race? Did you start with as much fuel as you could possibly go with, or lighten up to try and be a little faster? A lot of questions, I think, looming around pit strategy here. And of course, how much you can save in the draft. So only time is going to tell, as we've really not seen many leaders. I mean, we've seen Isaac Beekman, and that's about it as far as the leader. Sly Stafford did come in, as here we go, a move for Jack. Well, Jack Christie's going to get passed up into the bus stop here as Ken Hauseal takes 4th place back away.
I think he really had no choice there. Hauseal was the faster car, and he had a lot of slipstream on him. I think Chrissy honestly just lifted into a bus stop to give it to him because he knew it was a losing battle. Probably smart for them both to keep their momentum instead of slowing each other up.
Oh, yeah. And again, you can sit back and draft now if you're Jack Chrissy. You can save a little bit of fuel behind this number 23 and just do that little bit to save that 1/10 of a gallon or what have you, so you can try and cut it as close as you can. That 1/10 of a gallon, if you try and short fill, could be the difference between running out of turn number 11 and running out of turn 10. So that could be a whole lot of positions maybe that you gain or lose just by sitting behind somebody, biding your time. And again, that's what we've seen all race long out of Paul Darling, at least since he was passed up by Andrew Palada up front.
Battle for 8th, excuse me. That's Darian Taggart to the inside of Huffman. Huffman shut the door. His teammate behind him, Morgan Burkhardt, into the mix. The battle for 8th is on as Layton and Schickel pull away. Palada, the race leaders in the pit road.
So Andrew Palada finally pits. This is lap number 14 that he comes in on. So just about 11 to go once they hit the stripe.
Here come the leaders.
So in the pit lane.
Excuse me, more leaders coming in. Hauseal and Chrissy come in together. So main pit stops happening now. Layton and Schickel. Oh, crashed out of the final corner. Taggart, Huffman, and a few others in it.
That was the number 94 parked on the inside lane. That was Darian Taggart. Boy, how their turns stable.
A few more drivers in. That was Jameson Huffman he collided with. Huffman kind of shut the door, and Taggart tried to force it open. It did not work for either of them, so that's unfortunate. They were running so well, and all that progress gone for those two.
Trying to get a replay. Here we go. A little bit of action out of turn number 11. You can see Huffman was involved in a little bit of contact, and that was number 31 that went on by. That was Burkhardt. That's how quickly things change.
Yeah, that's a pretty big shakeup in the order. We'll see how it shakes out once pit stops are over. Taggart is officially out of this race as Chrissy is out of pit road already. And let's see, trying to look at where Isaac Beekman comes out. I believe he pit from 4th. Now, I'm not sure how this has gone, how well this has gone for him. He's coming out with Tom Layton, so I'm not quite sure if this has really worked out for him.
Layton, the white and red Porsche, following Beekman here, just out of the pit lane. It's going to be important, I feel like, for Tom Layton to challenge Isaac Beekman as much as he can while the tires are cold. Now, that might be a little bit backwards from normal logic, but I feel like if Layton can put the pressure on now, imagine when his tires are hot, he's able to fully challenge. It looks like Beekman kind of stretch his legs a little bit with those warmed-up tires, and then, well, blinks out of turn 5. But still, I feel like this is important for Tom Layton to kind of assert himself as battling in this top 10 or so, maybe for the top 5 spot once things cycle on through.
Yeah, that could be pretty important. He's had a good charge so far, as meanwhile, the top 2 leaders, Darling and Alessandrini, they've worked together so well. They've gone about 2 laps farther than Andrew Palada. Will it pay off as they're on the pit road together?
So the pit time for Palada is a 17.1 in the box. It's the slowest of most of the leaders. The rest of those guys were coming in for 19 or so. Jack Chrissy, for example, 19.3. Isaac Beekman at 17.9. Tom Layton, 19.2. So in the 19-second range for most of these guys, Palada was really the trendsetter, trend breaker at a 17.1, and he just might pass these guys because both of them stopped longer. Darling, a 16.2 actually, quicker, but Alessandrini an 18.3.
Yeah, Alessandrini is going to lose out, but Paul Darling jumps to the race lead, and it gets a lap car between him. Brian McRae in the way, so it'll hurt Palada a little bit, and Darling has the fresher tires, but Palada has a run. He's got to move now.
Should drive right back into the draft, I dare say, down the backstretch. We'll see what happens at the bus stop. Closing certainly on our race leader now with Paul Darling. The positions have changed, and Alessandrini seconds back of these two. It's going to be difficult without a draft for Alessandrini to march back up to these two.
And he went into the grass out of the bus stop, so he's really pushing, trying to get back into the slipstream, going wide out of certain corners. A wreck in front of the leaders might have occurred, not sure. Oh, there is a spin. Donald Louis spins in front of him. We'll see if he gets into the racing surface. He's going to join right in front of him.
Oh, my goodness.
What did we just watch?
I think Paul Darling's okay.
Is he okay?
The car looks fine.
That is unbelievable if he is, because he took a pretty big hit there.
Let's go back and watch this. This is going to be out of the carousel. We'll go ahead and let this play at full speed.
Brian McRae getting out of the way of Alessandrini as Donald Louis spun in front of him already. And he's already up against a guardrail at this point as Darling's taking his normal line. And Donald Louis right back into the racing line.
Got him right on the door. So thankfully, I don't think that's going to damage Paul Darling too much. I think he's mostly okay. I can't believe it.
Yeah, he definitely got away with one, no doubt about it.
If anything, that right front might be towed just a little bit wrong. But he's looked okay. I don't think the camber's off or anything. He's looked fine. He's made it back around, still leading, although that may change at a turn number 1. Palada on the inside, a challenge.
Straight line speed looked off there for Darling, as that might be the main difference here in this battle for the win, as Palada trying to stick on the inside in the S's. Brandon hooked the lap car in front of him. Palada had to lift. Here comes Alessandrini up the inside, and he makes the move for second.
Remember how I just said he wouldn't get back into this battle without a whole lot of help? Well, he's back. That help was the lap car crashing into Darling just a little bit. Now bump drafting Darling down to the bus stop.
Palada's got to be snake bitten right now. He had to move for the lead, essentially done. Lap traffic might have hurt him a little bit there, and all of a sudden Alessandrini out of nowhere, he's back to third, the farthest back he's been since the start of the race.
13.5 minutes to go. And now Palada is in the position that Alessandrini was in earlier. Where do you go when you're third? I think you've got to try and wait for these two ahead of you to mix it up. But is that going to happen until the final lap? Between these two, they help each other with qualifying. Now Alessandrini doesn't mind if he doesn't lead these laps. He only needs to lead the last lap. So he's not going to challenge Paul Darling just yet. Certainly not until the final minutes.
But the problem is the straight line speed on that 155 of Darling, it looked lacking down the front straight and up the S's. So how long can Alessandrini afford to sit behind him? That right front maybe partially flared out on Darling because of the incident. How long is he going to be able to stay in the lead? And how long is Alessandrini?
He got hit more so in the door. I think, if anything, the concern is that maybe the right rear, the contours of the side of the car maybe are messed up, or maybe a little bit of suspension damage to the right rear suspension components. Maybe he got hit there. He didn't really get hit on the right front, which I think is the most promising thing, certainly for Paul Darling at this point. And to play devil's advocate, we'll find out in a moment, but to play devil's advocate, I think it was the lap car holding him up the S's.
We'll have to wait and see. It just did not look good down the front straightaway before they got the lap car, but this time it does look much better. as Palada's looking for a dive on Alessandrini. He does not have the opportunity to do it here. Darling gets a good run because Alessandrini kind of preoccupied with Palada there.
Now this is all happening 15 seconds ahead of Jack Chrissy in 4th. Chrissy still holds that spot. Schickel now in 5th. Ken House-Seal through pit stops. A 28.9 second stop has dropped all the way back down to 8th position. The good news is he's only 3 seconds behind Tom Layton, so if he as a driver can make that time up, he can restart his climb through it. Oh, Paul Darling has just spun in the bus stop as the race leader.
Oh my goodness, from the lead, unbelievable. Not sure where it happened, not sure if there was contact, but he is out of the contention for the win.
Well, I wouldn't say that just yet. These two have really mixed things up, and lap cars have, well, they've reappeared in front of these two guys. I wouldn't say Darling's out of this for the race win just yet. He is now 8 seconds back, but we never know.
Oh, Jamison Huffman just spun into bus stop as well. That's from the 9th position, and he dinged into rear end of that Porsche pretty good.
Still watching the leaders. They'll work into lap cars into turn number 8. That is the 28th position running. Number 462 of Chris Harp. Just ahead is Paul Andrews in the 42. It looks like DJ out the inside in turn 9 takes that spot away. Palada follows through. And now they will get to work on Paul Andrews, and then it looks like a McLaren up the road. I can't tell exactly who that car is just yet.
I think that's it's a Marcus Montenegro up the road. And then after that, a few cars up, you got a BMW of Sly Stafford. BMW is probably the last lap car you want to see.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. Certainly, if there's any car that's going to hip check another car off the track, it's going to be a BMW. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but certainly is a possibility.
And where will lap car go? Andrews got really, really slowed up Alessandrini.
Oh my goodness!
Palada around the outside. Now he's going to have the inside. They're going to be too wide. Palada just got a gift. He's back to the race lead.
Palada takes the top spot back through the S's. DJ Alessandrini, though, with the slipstream, Palada's going to defend right along the right side of the track. How does this fare for the bus stop? Now, DJ back left side of the racetrack. Going to try and take the left side into the bus stop? No. Follows right back in behind Andrew Palada.
Andrews really got in the way there. Lap traffic, there's just no place to hide here in certain parts of the track, and exit of 1 is one of those places. Palada goes wide. Alessandrini got a decent run. Can he have a look into the corner? He looks outside. Palada defensive right now.
Gonna try and get a run on exit. Doesn't happen there. Palada doing a great job of just parking himself in corner apex, right in the center, and preventing any kind of crossover or any kind of late apex move from DJ right now. 9.5 minutes to go. I'm a little past that now. 9.25 minutes to go. They'll work on by this McLaren nice and easily. Good job there by that driver. Meanwhile, Beekman has been passed up. They're still trying to patch each other up for Layton. We'll take a look at this quickly. Isaac Beekman. Oh, contact! Oh, and he shoves him.
That's a little too aggressive there. It looked like an accident. He just sent it right into him. They're going to continue to battle, but Layton wasn't very happy about that.
No, I think the message was sent, certainly. A bump in the rear, a shot in the keister, as Steve Post would say.
Yeah, and Alessandrini out of 9 got a little bit wide into the grass, pushing a little bit too hard, seeing red after the incident with the lap car potentially cost him the lead. Did it cost him to win?
He's got a big opportunity up the road, though. Look at that.
Oh, yeah, Todd Rushing. That is a battle. That's 4th position, so they're not going to want to give it up too easily. That's 18th. Sly Stafford trying to defend Todd Rushing. Blinking the lights is Palada. He wants him out of the way right now.
Side by side they stay. Palada going to have to challenge himself on exit. And side by side they'll go back up the S's on the outside. Maybe no. Palada has to check up. Are you kidding me?
My goodness, Palada got sideways out of the first corner, and he did not have the run. He couldn't get the driver's left to get around Sly Stafford, and it was nothing he could do.
Wow. DJ Alessandrini now back with the race lead. This just keeps on changing. That lap car ahead is Todd Rushing in the 15 car. Hopefully to make things easier into the boot.
He has the 18th position, no problem. Now he stays to the inside, likely just going to give Alessandrini the inside on entry as he does break here. Alessandrini almost to the right into him. Look how much time Andrew Palada lost.
Yeah, that was a great move into the laces there to just shove right up the inside of Todd Rushing and make sure he got by that car without any other issue. On board here with Andrew Palada, the gap just under a second. Can he make it up in time to try and challenge for this race win? We'll find out. Tom Layton still battling with Isaac Beekman now at the inside here. This is into turn 6. So close.
And look who's there. Ken Halcyon can go 8th to 6th if he plays this right. They're going to stay side by side up ahead of him. He'll probably try to get a good run out here. Does he look for 3 abreast?
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, who was that? I did not see who that was before they reset. Trying to find it. That was Brandon Hook, who was 21st at the time.
Got hooked into the wall there, I dare say, as Halcyon going to push Beekman up along and hopefully in front of the 19. Not just yet. Leighton still hanging now. Halcyon gets that pass made, and Halcyon going to have to pick his way around Isaac Beekman. How's that going to work? Leighton up the inside. Took a look anyway for turn number 9.
Could not do much with it there, as I don't know if he's going to be able to get by Halcyon without potential issues with the battle with Beekman. As Evan Schickel, haven't noted him because he's gone from this battle 11th to 5th, and he is all by himself. As I say that, he just hit the wall out of the final corner, but he should be able to continue just fine.
Worth noting, Paul Darling has made up 2 seconds already since he rejoined after his spin in the bus stop. Now, that's a drop in the bucket, really, but it's at least something. So if those drivers ahead of him, DJ Alessandrini and Andrew Palada, if they have an issue, Paul Darling could be right back in this race. Here is Darling as he's working into some lap traffic.
He flashed the lights, and it looked like Montenegro didn't really give him the line. He's going to really get held up here.
Ooh.
He's going to be able to get by him, but not before probably having to lift here, trying to look at the battle for the lead. Palada trying so hard to get back to him. Will he have enough time to do it? And will lap traffic come into play again? They have a while before they catch more cars. Cristobal Rodriguez in 17th, the next up the road.
So finally a little bit of clean air. DJ really no chance to drive away just yet and eliminate the opportunity for slipstream. I think certainly Andrew Palada has another chance by the end of this race. Especially if we do catch that lap traffic, that would really hold DJ up. But a lot of lapped cars, they tend to get out of the way for the leader, and that sometimes can get right in the way of second place. So, I mean, think about us.
Yeah, we've seen it a lot today. Lap cars kind of just not... Oh, crash! That's the battle for 8th. That's gone sour. Isaac Beekman spun.
Beekman around. I think he's around with relatively no contact. I'd imagine that was at a contact with Halcyon.
That was actually with Tom Leighton, who sent it up the inside, and Beekman wasn't ready for it.
And we saw those two getting after it earlier on. Let's take a look back. This is going to be out of turn number 6. You can see where Leighton is setting this all up, and we saw them make contact earlier on into turn number 7. This is a look on board. Where does this move? Oh, my goodness.
Oh, he just was not anticipating the early braking, possibly.
I don't think that was early braking. That was a send and a half.
It was definitely a send, not early braking. I think the cars in front of him were definitely early braking, but meanwhile, we got to get back to the front. Palada has gotten back to Alessandrini. He has a slipstream, not in position to make the move, but Alessandrini will defend.
Side by side, maybe into the bus stop. Palada, no, sits back behind. I think Palada is going to have to make his move on the final lap, right? You do not want to give DJ that chance. It's like we're racing at Martinsville, right? When you time your bump and run, you do not want to give that driver an opportunity to hit you back in the next corner. So when do you time this? I think right into the bus stop, off of the backstretch on the white flag lap, if you can.
I wouldn't time a bump and run. I don't know if you want to do that into GT4 cars, but...
No, I'm not saying a bump and run, but a pass. You time that pass right on the final lap.
We have seen a bump and run today, so who knows, I suppose.
You know, we did, we just saw it with Tom Leighton and Isaac Beekman a few laps ago, so we'll see.
I can't tell whose tires are better. Palada slid out of 1 to lose the lead. Alessandrini just looks to be starting to get exits out of the corners. I don't know who looks stronger right now. They look pretty even to me. Alessandrini, he might just have to defend right now because he's not getting away from Palada's machine.
I love the way Randy Swiger put it. Great racing. Yeah, it is. This has been fantastic stuff. All 42 minutes so far as we come around to complete the 42nd minute of this race. That'll be 3 minutes to go and about 10 more seconds. Right about when they cross under the flag stand. These laps at about 2 minutes. Well, I think we're going to get 2 to go right here.
It's going to be pretty close, and Palada's going to have to pay attention to the time as well. He has to know when time's about to run out and when he will make his move. I'm sure he's planned it for 5 laps after losing the lead. I don't even know if he's lost the lead for 5 laps. He's close to Alessandrini again. He won't go for the send. Get as close as you can out of turn 1. Get the slipstream for up the S's. This is his best shot.
Palada going to have an opportunity with 2 laps to go here to draft right back up to DJ Alessandrini. I think this is where you kind of practice your move, right? You kind of set him up, maybe take a shot, maybe not. Is he going to try? He's going to go to the left side now as DJ protects the right. That's the inside for the first apex, but the outside for the next 2. Palada up the left side.
Oh, here we go.
He's going to back out.
Oh, and that's going to lose him a lot of time. That was not the place to do it. at all. He really mistimed that, and he's got to gain all that time back in really only a lap and a half.
I think you're right. I think he backed out a little bit too late. If he backed out sooner and gotten right back in behind DJ for the first apex of the bus stop, I think he'd fared better. But, hey, closes right back in turn 6. He's got something going for him.
Trying to look to see any battles in the back. Ken Alseal and Tom Layton are still right on top of each other, so there is a battle for 6th position. Still battle for 8th. Robert Porter, Jamison Huffman, just looking through the field real quickly. Beekman's back to 11th, still running. Sam Scott's cracked the top 10. A few other battles here and there, but the main battle for the win, as it has been hot all race long.
Here's a little bit of a mix-up, side by side out of the bus stop. This is Robert Porter now and Jamison Huffman. Where did Robert Porter come from? I don't know, but in the top 10, challenging now for the 8th spot. We'll go back up to the leaders before the white flag, don't you worry, but this is worth taking a look at. Just a lap or so to go, and look at that. Huffman has no wing.
Wow. I'm trying to remember if he was the one who backed it into a bus stop. Not quite sure, but he's making it work. Maybe it's helping. I'm not quite sure, but right now the battle for the win going on right now. Alessandrini pushing the limits, close to the guardrails as you can be. Palada needs a lot of time to make up here. Can he do it?
White flag is out. Round number 7 at Watkins Glen, the brand new scan, the brand new completely rebuilt and remastered Watkins Glen International is virtually, oh boy, it's going to come to a climax here. The final lap, up the S's, the number 6 on the way, Lap Cars City. What do? Down the backstretch. This is the perfect opportunity for Palada, but he might be too far back. I think he is.
Yeah, definitely too far back. He's got to find out a way to get by the lap car before the bus stop. That's really going to hurt his entry here. That's really going to maybe kill a chance he has at Alessandrini. Alessandrini a little wide, though. Palada didn't lose too much time, but he still has so much time to gain in so little time.
This is still not over by any means. Palada setting him up through turn 5 now. I almost said turn 9. Not quite NASCAR rules here. Through the carousel, into the laces. What a challenge into turn 6. Gained a lot of time. Car lengths there. Sacrifices maybe 1 on exit. Will go down to the toe.
Oh, Halseal and Layton have crashed for 6, but never mind that. The battle for the win is still on. Palada gained a lot of time, but he has to make a pass. Catching him's one thing, passing him's another. Does he have time to do both?
I would put my money on maybe. We'll see. Into turn number 8 for the final time. Alessandrini's got a few tenths, a few car lengths to work with here. Palada's got to try and erase that. Out of turn 8, up to turn 9 for the final time.
Oh,
big send! Not close enough.
Could not make it work there. I don't know if he's going to have another shot. Alessandrini's wide, but he didn't lose enough time.
Alessandrini wide out of 9. Maybe wide again on the entry to 10, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Into turn number 11, DJ Alessandrini would be the first winner on SimTV at the brand new Watkins Glen. Congratulations, DJ Alessandrini.
Unbelievable race. What a finish. Schickles walled it out of 9. Everyone's coming back. Paul Darling, after his incident, still finishes on a podium. Those top 3 were above everyone. What a drive by Alessandrini.
Jack Chrissy is going to come to the checkers with his right mirror hanging off the door. Further back, here's a look at Evan Schickel claiming 5th. Tom Layton will come through. You can see this battle wounds there on that number 19. He's going to collect 6th. You mentioned Ken Halseal in an incident. He has fallen way down the order, not even in the top 20, I don't think. Maybe 16th. We'll see.
He's exited the race. He could not continue, so he's not going to finish nearly where he should have.
There's Porter for 7th. Sam Scott, one of the highest McLarens of the day, in 8th. Isaac Beekman will take 9th, and Jameson Huffman right behind. No wing, finishes 10th. What in the world happened on that final lap?
That was crazy. It happened before the bus stop with Halseal and Layton. Not sure what happened, but I do know it was pretty catastrophic, no doubt, for Halseal.
We're going to try and get a look at things. This might tell us some of the story. That's some of the end of it as he gets hit by a passing McLaren. That certainly would be enough to frustrate me into potentially leaving. I understand there. Ken Halseal, this is just after it happened. This might tell us the story. Finally, this is Tom Layton and Ken Halseal. Final lap, up the S's. Layton's been aggressive. We've seen that. I think Layton's seeing a bit of red like he's got on the back of his car.
He goes to the outside, doesn't have positioning. He cuts back inside. Bit of a block by Halseal. They hit. To the left goes Layton, and Halseal just comes across him.
That's a lot like Beekman and Layton into turn 7 earlier in this race, if you recall, where they kind of came into one another into the toe. That a little bit different, but much the same. And Leighton goes on by, just waving at that point to Ken Halseal. I think Ken giving him the spot. And then something happens into 6.
Him getting back going here, trying to even see who this is he comes up on.
It's number 43 McLaren. Or is that 45? Could that be Sadiq?
And then he came into him. Trying to see if that was Sadiq. Not sure where he was running.
Louis Alessi. That's who that was.
Ah. Yeah, I'm not sure. That looked like Halseal kind of turned into him as well. So Halseal probably had just kind of thrown in the towel and probably just wasn't looking in his mirror.
What we do know is that's a race. Somehow, some way, that is a race done. I still can't believe what we just saw.
That was pretty amazing. That was such a crazy battle. 3 drivers under a blanket for the majority of the race. We had lead changes due to overall pace. We had contact with lap cars. We had lap cars getting in the middle of it. This race had pretty much everything.
Your top 10 on screen for you now. DJ Alessandrini taking top honors at Watkins Glen. Andrew Palada second place. Then it's Paul Darling third. Well, there we go. Jack Christie will take 4th. Evan Schickel will take 5th. Tom Leighton 6th after that contact on the final lap. Robert Porter 7th. Sam Scott 8th. Isaac Beekman, James, and Huffman round out your top 10.
Yeah, pretty impressive run. I think Huffman was the driver who did not have a rear wing by the end of that. Yes. So to somehow finish in the top 10 was a pretty good recovery.
Next page drivers here, 11th through 20th. Burkhardt, Kovac, Danny Gross in the number 29 and 13th. Kevin Zhu, I think rebounds in that case up to 14th. Good stuff there. Alex Smirnov, 15th. Halseal, man, I mean, how do you try and explain that heartbreak on the final lap?
It's just not much you can really say about it. Just a lot of frustration, no doubt about it. It's just unfortunate. Top 10, he was really one of the biggest movers, not because he gained the most spots, but because he was passing the most cars back and forth the entire time in the top 10, and it ends up turning sour. But one person I want to note real quickly, Cristobal Rodriguez, a lap down, 17th place. He started all the way in 37th. Definitely the biggest mover, plus 20 spots. Great job for him.
Yeah, really solid day there for Cristobal. You see the rest of the top 20, Todd Rushing, Marcus Montenegro that we talked about a little bit as a lap car. Unfortunately, as a lap car. Donald Louis, they're in the 20th position. Move on back to 21st on back. You got Matthew Sisson, Celeste Stafford. A lot of names that we talked about throughout the race, even David Thompson.
David Thompson, he had an incident a little bit earlier that kind of put him back, able to get back on track, get a solid result in 23rd after hitting the wall at some point. And trying to look at other drivers in here, Brian McRae, Chris Harp, Louis Alesi, all these drivers had issues early on and could never recover for the most part.
Yeah, Leslie back there in 27th. A lot of these guys, I think, absolutely right. They either took those incidents on the first lap, maybe the second lap, or at least in that region of the race. Even Darian Taggart was out decently early, was taken out in those pit stop crashes, actually. So made it through most of the race, certainly, but ends up, well, out in 30th position, unfortunately. Back down to 31st, you've got Bob Kucera in the number 22, Charlie Abel. A lot more of the heartbreak stories back here, up to 37th.
Yeah, back up to 37th at least, but it could have been a little bit better for sure. It sucks for Murphy Nichols for sure. I was excited to see what he could do. The internet issues took him out far too early. 35th place for him after having a decent qualifying. Matt Waldbaum, who I don't know if you noted him or not, we saw him looking pretty good in the top 5 and just could not finish it off.
Yeah, I mean, again, a lot of heartbreak stories back here, guys. You've got a feel for, certainly. In the case of Waldbaum, was up in the top running for a very long time. Even Murphy Nichols was up there for a long time. And unfortunately, connection issues for Murphy, but the crash from Matt Waldbaum take him out of the running and down to 33rd and 35th. That's gonna hurt hard.
Yeah, that's really going to hurt a lot for him, because another driver who we really thought could have decent pace and, you know, kind of compete well in the top 10 as we've seen him do, but it just wasn't really meant to be today for him as well.
While we have this quick moment, I guess, to kind of wrap up, I suppose, just the results and everything, we are working on getting in and getting interviews for this evening, but I gotta say, I'm much more excited now for Hungaroring next week than I was previously. That's not to say I wasn't already, but having watched this firsthand, talked about these cars and these drivers all night long, I'm definitely going to have to tune in next week when Kyle gets back.
Oh yeah, Kyle for sure. He's gonna be stoked to be back whenever he is. It's Hungaroring. Is that what you said? Hungaroring?
I do believe that's at least what I have in my notes.
Trying to look myself. It's going to be pretty interesting as it is. GT4
yes,
cars.
Next week, GT4, and then Indy Road Course with GT3 to finish things off.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting for sure. Hungaroring, not a track I've seen race yet on the iRacing service. Only experience there is in the F1 cars. It's a pretty tight circuit. If F1 fans have watched it, it's pretty narrow. Not a lot of straight line speed is needed there, so the BMW is going to be tough to handle there. But the McLaren and the Porsche will obviously be up front again. The McLaren might have an advantage. Not too many downhill corners where the rear downforce can kick out. So interested to see if we see any McLarens near the top.
Interesting to see, certainly. I actually have some recent experience with this myself. Recently had a GT3 race there with a separate league, and was able to see firsthand exactly how that was all going to go. Now we're racing GT4 machinery next week when that all happens, but still, I think worth noting, it is going to fare, I think, certainly the way of the Porsche and the way of the McLaren. Those will be the cars of choice, certainly. Much like here at Watkins Glen, I doubt we'll see much BMWs. It is a tight racetrack. A lot of drivers liken it, oddly enough, to Monaco.
There's a lot of tracks that people try to compare to Monaco. It's hard to compare tracks to Monaco because just of the sheer nature and the history of Monaco, but I'm sure there are certain comparisons you can make from one track to the other for those two specifically, and we'll have to wait and see if it's anything similar to that.
I think there will certainly be some comparisons to be made. It's tough to say. I mean, you've watched it at least with F1 races, right?
Oh, yes, for sure.
I think it's certainly a track meant for downforce cars, but it's a track that I think will lend itself to some interesting racing, exciting racing nonetheless, with these GT4 cars that certainly are not at all meant to be downforce on downforce tracks, not meant to race at places like that. We're going to make a quick jump over, so bear with us through this one. We're going to go join in with our drivers, at least going to give it a shot, and you bring Connor Horn over here in a second. There we go. Connor Horn is joining us. So we'll get a chance to talk to our drivers. And Connor, I'm just going to hand things over to you. You know these guys a whole lot better than I do. I'm just standing in for Kyle this evening. We're going to hand things your way.
We'll try to here. Got to get the top three, mainly. The three drivers who are pretty much above everyone else here. They got to see if we can move them in here. Not sure if we have the authority to do that. Alessandrini, Palada, and Paul Darling. Just trying to get to talk to them here. Definitely the top three that were above everyone else today. There was no doubt about it. They finished multiple seconds in front of everyone else. Even with Paul Darling's spin there, he was still miles ahead of fourth place there. It was a very impressive run.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be impressed with throughout the entirety of this field. Certainly a lot of drivers to, I think, now watch for in different lights, different respects going into Hungaroring next week. And that's the last race these drivers have, at least for this season, with these GT4 cars. That's going to be an interesting little send-off before we take GT3 cars to Indianapolis. Questions, I think, certainly are going to be answered these next couple of weeks.
There's a lot of questions to be answered, no doubt about it. So we'll just have to wait and see. It's going to be interesting to watch. I love going to new tracks. This is, I guess, technically a new track in a certain sort of way. So we'll have to wait and see. But I'm very interested to see what could happen as we finally do have some drivers in here. Sort of difficulties here, but we do have drivers. I'm going to want to, Alessandrini and Paul Darling. I'm going to talk to Paul Darling first. You got a copy, Paul?
Yeah, just a rough race.
Didn't want to note it, but it was sort of rough near the end there. Had some pretty decent runs there so far. You top three above everyone else. And then out of pit road, things got pretty dicey. And first off, the first thing that kind of started your descent to third place, the contact with Donald Louis in one of the corners there. What was going through your mind at that point?
That was a garbage rejoin. That's all that was. You see it sometimes, and it's unfortunate. And hope he learns from it. That's about it for that.
It was tough to see because you were running very well, and then obviously the spin into the bus stop happened. Still able to come home with a third place finish. We're looking pretty solid there, but obviously Andrew Palada and DJ Alessandrini were very strong with you as well. Did you think you had the upper hand in that race for the win?
I don't know if Oh, DJ probably thinks he had the upper hand. I don't think either of us had the upper hand necessarily, but I think it was going to be depending on how the traffic played into that run out of turn 1 and whether there was a draft.
The traffic definitely played a factor, no doubt about it. Slipstream as well. It was very interesting to watch. Wish it could have been all three of you battling for it, but it was very fun to watch you wheel that thing around this track. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys.
Appreciate you. Let's see, we'll move over here. Just next to him in Discord, DJ Alessandrini is in here. Our race winner, almost forgot to note here, first race winner on the Watkins Glen new circuit. Kyle would be proud of you if he was here. You got me, DJ.
Yeah, I mean, the track honestly is kind of the same as the old one. The curbs are a different color and they make different sounds, and the graphics are a little prettier, and my frame rates run a little lower, unfortunately. I got to figure out what's going on with that, but yeah, it's Watkins Glen. It's not particularly my favorite track, and Kyle will get all triggered about that, but it races fine enough. Basically, my strategy for that race was kind of save tires. At Summit Point, I noticed that the tires of these cars fall off pretty good, so I just played nice with the tires, saved some fuel, which saving fuel didn't do anything since I had a longer pit stop than the two guys in front of me, but I had good tires at the end to fight Andrew, and he made a move on me in the bus stop to second to last lap, and he definitely didn't have enough overlap to even still be there, so I took that as my chance to kind of break away, and I got lucky with a lapped car giving me draft on the back straight on the last lap. So honestly, pretty uneventful race for me. It's nice to know that Paul Darling is a human being, though, and made a mistake, because that guy's been flawless this whole season so far.
It's definitely been hard to beat him at certain points. I think only you've been capable, but one thing I just want to quickly note, one more question. We had a lot of lap cars sort of get involved in the race for the win, and you lost the lead on one lap car in turn 1, and then it kind of came back to you in the presence of Sly Stafford, and also a slide from Palada came into play as well there. Did you think that was the race for the win? Did you think it was going to come down to lap cars?
I mean, lap cars always can influence the race, and they're not trying to. It turns out racing's pretty tough. But I think we need to have a little bit of a driver's briefing on if you're going to let somebody by, like where to let them by, because letting them by on the exit of the corner is it's really tough to avoid those cars. Like, the trajectory of my car is already set, and in order to avoid a car trying to let me by on the exit of the corner, I have to substantially pull out of it to not rear end them.
It's definitely an unfortunate scene with some of the lap cars not having the time to get out of the way. Luckily for you, I suppose it did play in your favor, and you got a pretty convincing win, a pretty fun win, no doubt about it. Congrats, DJ.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you. And then one more interview here. We have gotten Andrew Palada. Do you got me, Andrew?
Hey there.
Hey, we got a decent second place finish there. Probably not what you wanted. Definitely not what you wanted, because it looked like you might have had the racing control after the pass by Alessandrini and the Paul Darling incident. The race was definitely influenced by lap traffic. You had the incident with Sly Stafford. Did you think he could have done anything else to get out of the way?
I mean, probably, but that's how these things go, right? Is long race, you got to deal with traffic. That's just part of the game, right? So DJ and I kind of both had to deal with that a little bit at one point. So, it is what it is. That's part of the game. So, frankly, I'm just happy to kind of be in the mix this time. I feel like I had the pace to kind of stay in control if I needed to, but just not quite enough to get past DJ or stay ahead of Paul.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to stay ahead of those two. As we've seen this entire season, it's been you, Alessandrini, and Darling pretty much ahead of everyone else, and it was no different tonight. Even with Darling's spin, he still finished third place. Racing with these two week in and week out, does it bring your racing level to a whole nother level trying to beat those two?
Yeah, it definitely does, because I think Paul and DJ are both really fair when it comes to actually racing. So, they leave you room. They a lot of times they set me up and I don't even really see it coming, but it kind of pushes me to have to really kind of figure out how I can kind of outsmart them when the time comes. But I'm slowly picking it up. Usually I'm a hot lapper by choice, but I'm picking up the racing stuff slowly but surely.
Well, you're definitely no hot lapper tonight. You were a long run guy tonight, no doubt about it. Had the pace to win. If few things go your way, you probably do win, but it just wasn't the night. A decent second place finish, though. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And so, Connor, that is certainly one way to wrap things up here from Watkins Glen. Love hearing from these drivers, especially after such amazing battles that come down literally to the last few moments, the last few minutes at places like this, especially like Watkins Glen. Everybody wants to win at Watkins Glen. It's not necessarily like Le Mans or Daytona, one of those kind of crown jewels, but Watkins Glen is special in a different way to everybody.
Yeah, it was really interesting to watch. I was so excited to get to this new track, and the racing was somehow exceeding my expectations. We had packs left and right all over the racetrack. The 3-car battle for the lead pretty much the entire race. Battles inside the top 10, going well, going sour at times. Some big movers, some movers to the back. Cristobal Rodriguez, one of them. And at the end of the day, one thing I did not expect tonight was lap traffic being such a big factor. We saw it from the moment there was a wreck in turn 1 on the first lap. Lap cars were already in the mix pretty early on, and they played a big factor in this race with how Paul Darling's race ended up going. Valentini losing the lead to lap car, then gaining it back because of a lap car, and lap cars kind of staying in the way to the very end of this race. I didn't expect that. Haven't seen that much this season, but that stuff can happen in endurance racing sometimes when you get these long races. But at the end of the day, it was such a blast, a great battle to the finish regardless of lap traffic, and Palada and Alessandrini duked it out for 45 minutes, and it was exciting, and Alessandrini comes out on top once again.
Well, as we get ready to close things out, the first thing I've got to say is thank you so much, everybody here watching this evening, for sticking through. I know we had a couple of technical difficulties there at the end especially, but for sticking through, we really do appreciate it. It was a fantastic day of racing at the brand new Watkins Glen. But that will do it from the virtual Watkins Glen. Again, thank you so much, as always, to the Washington, D.C. SCCA Virtual Racing League and all of our partners here at SimTV. And thanks to everyone for watching along this evening. We sincerely hope you enjoyed today's broadcast. For all of SimTV, I'm Andrew Cardinale IV with Connor Horn alongside, in place of Kyle Heyer. Wish he could have been here, but we wish him the best of luck at his endeavors this week up at PRI in Indianapolis. Maybe go say hi to him. You never know. That said, have a great night. We'll see you next week at the Hungaroring.